All right, guys. George the Gamer here, back with you for another deep dive, and you already know what we're looking at today.
More Ban.land.
Of course, it's more Ban.land. I mean, come on, you guys know I'm obsessed with this server.
You've done the wiki deep dive.
Yeah, we went through all of that.
You've talked to some anonymous players.
Some interesting characters, let me tell you.
And you even analyzed some chat logs.
Yeah, we tried to figure out what was going on in those things.
Today
We're doing something different.
We're going for like the fundamentals.
Yeah, the fundamentals of Ban.land. We're really going to try to unpack like what made this server tick.
And what made it so unique?
Yeah, why was this place so special? And of course, like the big question mark hanging over everything.
WID.
Yeah, who was this dude? What was he all about? So that's our deep dive today. And oh yeah, before I forget.
Hit that like button, subscribe.
Yes, please do all of that good stuff. Helps the channel grow.
Yeah.
So we do more of these. And trust me, I've got plenty more Ban.land content planned because this is a deep rabbit hole. But we're going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter.
A little bit.
Yeah, just focus on the fundamentals and, my own opinions on WID based on everything I've read.
Well, it's fascinating trying to understand someone like him based on these scraps of information we have.
I know, right? It's like we're piecing together this puzzle, but half the pieces are missing.
Exactly, and we're not even sure what the picture on the box is supposed to be.
That's a great analogy. I mean, one of the things that's so weird about Ban.land is that it totally breaks the mold of what we think of when we hear Anarchy server.
Right. You expect instant chaos.
Yeah, like the second you spawn in, it's lava everywhere. Inner traps players just waiting to gank you.
Precisely. But it's interesting.
What's that?
A lot of the accounts describe a surprisingly normal start.
Wait, really normal? Like how?
Strew100, for example, mentioned that the initial spawn area was relatively untouched.
Untouched?
Yeah, there were resources, even trees like you'd find in a fresh Minecraft world.
Hold on, trees that spawn on an Anarchy server?
Yeah, it's not what you'd expect.
That's practically unheard of. So if they weren't just immediately griefing each other, what were players doing back then?
Seems like surviving against the environment was a big focus in the early days.
I guess that makes sense. You get to establish yourself before you can start causing chaos.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the usual mobs. WID actually added these giant custom mobs.
Giant mobs, like how giant are we talking?
Massive behemoths. Way bigger than anything you'd find in vanilla Minecraft.
Wow, so these things were like mini bosses roaming around.
Pretty much one player even said that having an elytra in those early days was a major status symbol.
An elytra, those wings you can use to glide around, yeah.
Because it meant you could actually escape from these giant mobs.
Oh man, so instead of other players being the biggest threat, it was WID's own creations.
It's a really interesting twist. Makes you wonder if he designed it that way on purpose.
Yeah, like he wanted to foster a different kind of gameplay early on.
Maybe he wanted to see how players would adapt to this unique challenge before things inevitably descended into chaos.
It's a fascinating thought, and speaking of defying expectations, we got to talk about Supreme Tech.
Yeah, initially known as Slathara.
The legend himself, he really changed the course of Ban.land, didn't he?
Absolutely. His impact is undeniable. He did some things that nobody else would even think of.
I mean, wiping millions of blocks at spawn, that takes some serious dedication.
And according to one anonymous player, he did it deliberately.
Deliberately. So it wasn't just like random destruction. He had a plan.
It seems that way. He wanted to create a truly blank canvas for players.
Like a ultimate survival test. Here's nothing. Now build something amazing.
Exactly. He wanted to push the limits of what an Anarchy server could be.
And his rise to power, that's a whole other story, isn't
Now,
it?
he took down Alpha Cheater, basically the server's most feared PvPer.
The guy everyone was terrified of.
And that victory, it really cemented Supreme Tech's status as a leader.
Which is kind of weird when you think about it. Leader on an Anarchy server.
It is a paradox.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect leadership to emerge in a place that's supposed to be all about freedom and no rules.
But, even in a supposedly lawless environment, people crave some structure.
I guess that's human nature. We like to know where we stand, even if it's in a world of chaos.
And Supreme Tech, he provided that he spearheaded these massive community projects, like building those huge lava walls around Spawn.
I've seen those in videos. It's mind-blowing.
They were meant to protect Spawn from griefing and attempt to maintain some semblance of order.
And of course, there was Spawn Base that constantly rebuilt hub near Spawn.
Yeah, it kept getting destroyed and rebuilt over and over again.
It was like a symbol of the server's resilience. You can't keep us down.
It makes you think maybe Anarchy isn't about the absence of order, but the constant struggle between order and chaos.
Deep stuff. Deep stuff. And it wasn't just Supreme Tech. We saw other factions popping up. New Athens, Ovium, UNXTY.
Right. These groups were vying for power and influence.
But they weren't always at odds with each other, were they?
No, there were actually instances of collaboration like the meeting of Spawn-based treaty force.
Oh yeah, that whole treaty thing where they tried to establish some rules for PvP around Spawn.
It was a really unique event, players trying to negotiate peace in the middle of anarchy.
Makes you wonder what anarchy even means in this context. Was it truly a free-for-all? Or were there always these underlying rules and power dynamics at play?
It's a question worth pondering, but, while we see these efforts at community building, we can't forget about the guy who made it all possible.
WID, the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a dude with a computer.
The enigmatic admin himself.
The wizard behind the curtain, the one we all want to understand, but nobody really does.
WID had this quirky personality. Remember his catchphrase, no Pepsi, no service?
Ah, yeah, classic WID. It really sums him up, doesn't it? Like a mix of humor and a touch of menace.
And he was actually quite active in the server's early days, according to Stru100.
Really? So he wasn't just some distant figurehead. He actually interacted with the players.
Yeah, he would join in on events, sometimes even mess around with people.
There's even that bizarre story about players bribing him with cheese sticks.
Cheese sticks.
I know, right? It sounds ridiculous, but it wouldn't surprise me with WID.
So he was this hands-on admin who joked around with players, maybe had a thing for cheese sticks, but then we hear about these accusations of admin abuse later on.
It paints a very complex picture.
It does, and that complexity is what makes him so intriguing. Was he a benevolent overseer, a mischievous prankster, or something else entirely?
Maybe a little bit of everything.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, we might never know the real WID, but hey, that's part of the fun. Isn't it, trying to figure this guy out?
It is, but before we get too lost in WI theories, we got to talk about the dupe era.
Oh man, the dupes. That was when things really went off the rails.
It was a turning point in Ban.land's history, for sure.
It changed the game completely, and I don't think anyone saw it coming.
Not even WID. It all started with these glitches, players figuring out how to duplicate items.
Yeah, the dupes basically infinite resources,
yeah.
Diamonds, tools, enchantments, you name it.
And that completely changed the dynamics of the server.
In a big way.
I mean, think about it. On a normal server, scarcity drives competition, right?
Yeah, you got to fight for resources, protect what you have.
Exactly. But with infinite resources, that all goes out the window.
It's like everyone becomes a millionaire overnight.
Exactly. One player even described it as making resources meaningless.
Meaningless? How so?
Well, griefing lost its impact because anything that got destroyed could just be instantly replaced.
Ah, I see. So there were no real consequences.
And building became almost trivial because resources were no longer a constraint.
Yeah, it's like the whole survival aspect of the game just disappeared.
It definitely changed the core gameplay loop. Some players loved it, some hated it.
I can see both sides. I mean, it must have been pretty wild to suddenly have unlimited everything.
It was, but it also led to this feeling of apathy for some players.
Apathy, like they just didn't care anymore.
Yeah, what's the point of building something amazing when it can be effortlessly destroyed and rebuilt?
Right, there's no sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. The challenge, the struggle, that's all part of what makes Minecraft fun.
And the dupes kind of took that away.
They did, but there's also a creative side to it.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing videos of these insane builds that would have been impossible without dupes.
Giant statues, sprawling castles, complex redstone contraptions. It was like a burst of unbridled creativity.
It's like they had to find new ways to express themselves now that the old rules didn't apply.
Exactly. The dupes unleashed this chaotic energy, this drive to create and destroy on a massive scale.
Makes you wonder if WID saw this coming.
It's hard to say for sure, but his response to the dupes was definitely interesting.
Interesting how?
Well, he eventually nerfed some of the most overpowered items, but it took a while.
So he kind of let things play out for a bit.
Yeah, some players saw that as deliberate inaction, like he was observing how the community would adapt to this sudden abundance.
Maybe he was curious to see if order could emerge from this chaos, or maybe he was just enjoying the show.
We may never know his true intentions.
Classic WID, always keeping us guessing.
But one thing's for sure, the dupe era left its mark on Ban.land.
Well, absolutely. Changed the server forever. And it's interesting how it coincided with a shift in Supreme Tech's focus.
He seemed to lose interest in maintaining order and became obsessed with this idea of integrating cryptocurrency into the server.
Yeah, crypto in Minecraft back then, that was a wild concept.
It was incredibly ambitious and way ahead of its time.
I mean, imagine a player-driven economy within Ban.land, with resources and services being traded using crypto.
It could have been revolutionary, but also incredibly complex to implement.
Was he trying to create a real-world economy within the game, or was it some kind of social commentary?
Or maybe he just wanted to be the first to do it, to cement his legacy as the ultimate Minecraft innovator.
Who knows? With Supreme Tech, he was always pushing the boundaries.
But unfortunately, we may never know his true intentions because he left the server before his crypto vision could be realized.
Yeah, his departure, along with the fallout from the dupe era, seemed to mark the beginning of the end for Ban.land.
It's like the server lost its momentum, player activity declined, factions disbanded, and that sense of community started to fade.
It's sad to think about. It was like the energy that had fueled Ban.land for so long was finally gone.
And then to add to the mystery, the Ban.land Discord server disappeared.
Just like that, poof, gone, no warning, no explanation.
Some people think WID was behind it.
Like he wanted to erase all traces of the server, let it fade into legend.
But others believe it could have been a technical issue or even a hack.
It's a mystery that we may never solve.
But it definitely adds to the intrigue.
It does. It's like this whole world, all these stories, all these connections just vanishing without a trace.
It reminds us that even in the digital realm, nothing lasts forever.
That's a deep thought, man. A deep thought.
But even though the server is gone, the memories of those who played on it remain.
And those memories are worth exploring.
Absolutely, because they tell us something about the human experience, about our desire for connection, for community, for something bigger than ourselves.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
We're piecing together this puzzle, trying to understand what made this server so unique, so compelling, so utterly chaotic.
It's like digital archaeology.
We're sifting through the remnants of a lost world, trying to make sense of the past.
And while we may never have all the answers, the journey itself is illuminating.
It is. It makes you think about the nature of online communities, the allure of anarchy, and the motivations of someone like WID.
Who created this world and then seemingly abandoned it.
But even with all the chaos and uncertainty, there was something special about Ban.land.
Something that drew people in and kept them coming back for more.
And I think it's worth exploring what that something was.
Yeah, what was it about Ban.land that resonated so deeply with its players?
Was it the freedom, the challenge, the sense of community, or maybe it was something else entirely?
You know, it's crazy when you think about all the different kinds of players Ban.land attracted.
Oh yeah, it was a real melting pot of personalities.
It wasn't just like a giant chaotic free-for-all.
No, not at all. Each player had their own unique approach to the game.
Like some are all about building and creating.
Right, trying to establish some kind of order, even in this world, without rules.
Yeah, Supreme Tech was a prime example of that.
He had a vision for Ban.dot, and he wasn't afraid to make it happen, even if it meant wiping out millions of blocks.
Then you had those hardcore survivalists.
The nomads constantly on the move, evading griefers and those giant mobs.
Always looking for the next challenge, the next adventure.
And let's not forget about the trolls and pranksters.
Oh yeah, those guys were a riot, always stirring up trouble.
Space F and his crew, they were legendary.
They seemed to thrive on the chaos, always coming up with new ways to mess with people.
It's like they saw Ban.land as their personal playground.
And yet, amidst all that craziness, there were also these moments of genuine collaboration.
Right, those times when players came together to build something amazing.
Like the lava walls around Spawn and that constantly rebuilt Spawn base.
It showed the server's resilience, this desire to create something lasting, even in a world designed for destruction.
It's wild, isn't it? This constant back and forth between chaos and order creation and destruction.
It really makes you wonder if that was WID's intention all along.
Like he designed Ban.land to be this kind of social experiment.
A crucible to test the limits of human behavior.
It's tempting to think that way, especially with his hands-off approach and that cryptic catchphrase, no Pepsi, no service.
It's like he was always watching, lurking in the shadows.
But we may never know his true motivations.
You know, we can analyze the events, the player accounts, the chat logs, but ultimately WID remains an enigma.
Was he a benevolent overseer? A chaotic trickster?
Yeah.
A social scientist conducting a grand experiment?
We're left with more questions than answers.
And you know, that's part of what makes Ban.land so fascinating.
It's a puzzle with missing pieces and maybe no definitive solution.
But that doesn't stop us from trying to solve it.
No, it just makes the journey all the more intriguing.
So even though the server is gone, the impact of Ban.land lives on.
It's a legend, a story that continues to be told and retold.
It pushed the boundaries of what a Minecraft server could be, and its influence can still be felt today.
Absolutely. From Supreme Tech's ambition to create a player-driven economy to Space F's chaotic antics ban. Spaceland inspired a generation of players.
It showed them that anything is possible in Minecraft.
And that sometimes the most interesting experiences come from embracing the unpredictable.
So to everyone who joined us for this deep dive into Ban.land, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed exploring this lost world with us.
And if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Minecraft content.
And until next time, keep those torches lit.